Sung Suho was then a year old, the day the cute baby finally took his first steps. Like all parents, Suho's house was very chaotic, in a slightly different way from others. Honey, Suho, our dear Suho, what's wrong with Suho? Suho's mother, Hae-in, was screaming in disbelief. He's floating on air! What? Suho is flying around the house right now. Suho took his first step in the air, not on the floor. In fact, it was one of the special powers that Suho inherited from his father, Sung Jin-woo, the ruler's power. 1-year-old Suho learned how to fly before he could even walk. Baru sniffed as he recalled how that sight was like the story of the extraordinary birth of a hero in mythology. Back then, Earth was a very peaceful world. The power that Suho inherited was created to destroy everything and was of no use in a peaceful world. No, it wasn't just futile, but rather it has the potential to make a life impossibly normal. Sung Jin-woo decided to seal that power until Suho could control it. Leaving Baru's fuss behind his ear, Suho fired the arrow he held with his invisible hand in the opposite direction. I'll give it back to you. You have killed a goblin archer. The goblin archer fell down with an arrow stuck in his throat. Meanwhile, the other goblins behind him were startled. They turned their backs and started running away. Do you think I'd let you escape? Suho also chased him right away, but swoosh! With just a single leap, Suho outran the fleeing goblins. He looked at one of the goblins. Their eyes met awkwardly in mid-air. The inhabitants of the Shadow Dungeon will never acknowledge you as the owner of this land because you are weak. Prove yourself worthy by surviving within the required time. Required time, 4 hours. Remaining time, 4 hours, 0 minutes, 0 seconds. Survival! After reading the quest, Suho's eyebrows twitched. With that, the goblin captain uses item horn to call his subordinates. Along with the roaring voices, the goblins hiding all over the city began to appear one by one. Expecting that there would be a lot, but still there's too much. Suho flashed a tired look on his face. You're kidding, right? I need to hold out for 4 hours like this? Of course, you don't have to kill them all. Right now, young master is only at level 3. Try to survive somehow. The more you struggle hard, the more you will naturally level up and become stronger. Baru winked and raised his thumb. His face was filled with a smile, like that of a father looking proudly at his grown son. Why did that sound quite mean? But now was not the time to overthink. They are coming. Quack! Suho hurriedly took the second axe from the hand of the goblin he had just killed. Item goblin stone axe, difficulty to get E. Type axe, attack power +5. Hand axe used by goblins. Item information floats above the axe, 1 for each hand. Holding 2 stone axes in each hand, Suho's eyes glimmered, but something made him more anxious. The approaching goblins are all now holding axes on both hands. Skill endurance level 1 was acquired. I got a skill? Suho's eyes widened. Usually hunters live their whole lives with only the skills given at the same time as their awakening. In order to acquire additional new skills, they needed the expensive runestone that are found very rarely, but he was able to get that precious skill for free during a battle. Skill endurance level 1, passive skill, no mana needed. You have invincible tenacity, increases physical defense by 20%. He was able to feel the effect even before checking the skill description. The pain from the wounds on the body was alleviated. The intimidated goblins screamed and scattered in all directions. At the same time, the sound of horns calling more of their companions rang from all areas. Suho hid behind a pillar and caught his breath. Wow, it hurts. Baru jumped up and stomped his feet. Keek, are you in so much pain? Young master? Well, you're young, so it would hurt. You'll get stronger as you get hurt. I'm so happy to know that you've acquired an endurance skill as much as the attacks you received. Suho, who had been pressing his wound with his hand to stop the bleeding, glared at Baru. Hey! There was an ant the size of a fist, smiling brightly cluelessly. Why don't you help me instead of just watching? Baru was a strong monster who tore apart the huge wolf with his own strength. He looked so reliable back then. After his body got smaller, he seemed to have no intention of helping Suho, but Baru had his own circumstances. Your level increased. Time went by slowly. Still, after being bloody and struggling for a while, his level was gradually increasing. When he finally leveled up, the wounds from the goblin's axes were completely healed and the blood flow stopped. His body strength, which seemed to dry out at any moment, quickly got replenished. Most of all, as his level went up, Suho became stronger and stronger, finally. You have completed the quest. Your level increased. Level 7. When the timer stopped, the goblins, who had been ferociously chasing Suho until now, scattered and hid in the darkness. Is it over? Suho looked around without putting his guard down. Before he knew it, the corpses of goblins were all around him. A heavy silence fell, just like when they first came here. Kiu! Good job! I'm so proud of you! Clap, 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 clap! It was Baru who broke the silence and clapped like a seal excitedly. Finally, those wicked bastards acknowledged. Young Master, now they must have realized deep within that Young Master is not as weak as he looks. As he looks? How did I look back then? Well, initially, you were at the level similar to a lava that can easily get killed when stepped on. Now you're already at level 7, lava. He still wouldn't stop it. Suho shouldn't have asked. Right then, ring! The quest completion reward has arrived. Do you want to check the reward? Yes, ma'am. Yes, as soon as Suho finished answering, the message unfolded. The following reward has been prepared. Reward 2, Runestone, Shadow Fragment.
Shadow Fragment. This is the kind of reaction I expect from you, Suho, in receiving similar power to the Shadow Monarch.
Oh, amazing. They're giving me this as a reward. In the last quest, they gave me stat points, and this time they are giving me Runestone to acquire skills. Wow. Is it okay to get it like this?
I told you. Everything in this place is for you, young master.
Baru thought of something to say before that. This level-up system is an auxiliary guide for the stable growth of the young master. It is an improvement system used by His Majesty in the past to fully receive the power of the great monarch in the weak body of a human being. Wait, what? It was a summoning skill?
What are you talking about? How can you react like that after receiving such great power?
No, it's just that summoning skill is kind of...
These days, summoning skill is treated indifferently among hunters. The dungeons beyond the gates are a bloodbath. Hunters could never let their guards down even for a bit, or else the monster's claws would rip their necks apart. The floor and the ceiling were full of dangerous traps. They could only be responsible for their own respective lives in that place. Combat hunters have strong bodies, so it didn't matter, but mage hunters are nowhere far from ordinary people in terms of physical abilities. Among them, mage hunters with summoning skills were even more vulnerable. As they entrusted all the battles to the summoners, they were no different from helpless baggage following them.
No, S2, that's not all. It consumes a lot of mana. It's difficult to look for a useful summoner. Even if you do find one, it's not as strong as you think.
Baru stomped his feet with a sad and frustrated look on his face. The image of him mocking Suho for being weak disappeared, and all there was left was anger. Seeing that, Suho felt a little sorry.
I'm sorry, but what can we do if that's the reality? But it's definitely a good thing to acquire skills.
No, don't comfort me by pretending to be so considerate. This is genuinely a good thing.
Oh, you seem to have changed your tone a bit.
Huff, huff.
Okay. Anyway, I'll accept the reward.
A runestone appeared in Suho's hand.
Shadow Fragment.
Breaking the runestone lets you absorb the skill. Suho broke the runestone without hesitation.
You have acquired skill Shadow Fragment.
Swoosh! At that moment, a shadow rose up from under Suho's feet, wrapped around his whole body, and then disappeared. Ting! A skill window opened in front of him.
Skill Shadow Fragment Level 1. Shadow Power. No mana needed. Drains mana from dead bodies and transforms them into shadow soldiers. The probability of shadow release failure increases proportionally to the target's ability level and the elapsed time of the target's death. Number of shadow fragments, 0 out of 3. Transforms into a shadow soldier.
After reading the information, Suho's gaze turned back to Baru. It's a shadow demon with black smoke surrounding its entire body.
That's right. It's a skill that makes soldiers like me. Shadow fragmentation or release is an essential power that made the current Shadow Monarch Sung Jin-woo exist.
At that moment, Suho realized that there were numerous goblin corpses surrounding him. Black smoke slowly arises from the corpses that he killed in the past 4 hours.
Shadow release is possible on this target. Shadow release is possible on this target. Shadow release is possible on this target.
Every time he looked at the black smoke, the same messages appeared over and over again.
Shadow Soldier, is this some kind of a necromancer? As expected, it wasn't really something good.
He had seen it on the internet before. There are several types of summoning skills, like summoning spirits from nature and taming them, or taming a living animal. Among them, the role he hated the most was the necromancer.
Because there are a lot of restrictions. First of all, the part where there had to be a body was the most problematic. I would need to hunt for a body first, just like now. That means I can only control those that are weaker than me.
He thought he had to try it out himself to know for sure.
Shadow Fragment.
A message appeared after Suho's words.
Specify a shadow releasing skill command.
Suho thought for a moment. Baru beside him kept moving his body.
Why? Do you have something to say?
When Suho looked at him, Baru sighed.
Oh, nothing. Cock!
Why is he acting like that all of a sudden? Suho squinted his eyes. He didn't know what Baru was going on about, but he uttered the command without hesitation. He thought it would be better if the command was intuitive.
Arise.
As much as he waited, Baru clenched his fists and said strangely,
This is it!
Then an extraordinary thing happened. Suddenly the laughter of the goblins echoed through the air. Shadows began to wriggle from the corpses of the goblins that had fallen on the floor. They seemed to be alive.
Oh God.
Suho's eyes widened and he looked around. From all sides, there was endless vile laughter like that of villains, and black hands were stretching out of the shadows. The hands began to crawl out of the shadows, like demons who came back alive from hell.
Shadow release succeeded.
3 black goblins whose bodies were made from hazing black smoke appeared in front of Suho.
Shadow Goblin level 1, basic class.
The 3 shadow goblins lined up waiting for Suho's orders.
You surely don't look very strong at all.
Baru also noticed the same thing. Even with the similar shadow fragment skill, the difference when the Shadow Monarch Sung Jin-woo uses it was too evident. That's also true when Sung Jin-woo first acquired that skill. He was at level 50, while Suho is only at level 7 now. If the player's level is low, the effect would inevitably be weaker, even with the use of similar skills.
That's how it usually is. Shadow soldiers who were just released are downgraded versions of their original form.
They're also smaller.
That's right, I guess.
Then obviously the same goes with their strength.
Very slightly.
Even the speed.
Baru muttered in a very small voice.
Shadow fragments are affected by intellect stats and levels. This is a really good skill. If you use it for later, it's a really, really good skill. There's no other way to explain this better.
Okay.
Suho looked at the shadow goblins waiting for his orders. He then prepared to return back.
Wait, shouldn't you be giving your orders right now?
Baru was surprised. At that moment, a sound came from Suho's stomach.
I haven't eaten for 2 days.
Suho said seriously. Baru no longer argued.
All right.
It was all about eating and surviving, regardless if you were a hunter or a shadow monarch.
Anyway, if you use the key to the shadow dungeon, you can come in and out of here anytime. Get some rest.
Suho took out the key and hovered it into his own shadow, just like when he entered. Are you sure you want to leave the shadow dungeon? Yes. Clank.
The moment he turned the key, a shadow engulfed Suho.
You have exited the shadow dungeon.
As soon as Suho returned to the hospital, he collapsed on the bed.
Slump, I've really worked hard.
Suho lays down on the bed for the first time in a while and lets out a deep sigh. In reality, it was only 4 hours, but it felt like 4 days. Although all of his body strength returned to normal as he leveled up, he was completely exhausted mentally. The door of the ward opened and people in suits came in.
Excuse us, is this the room of Mr. Sung Suho?
Suho immediately noticed who they were. There would only be one group of people who would look for him in that kind of situation.
We are from the Hunters Association.
As expected, the people in suits approached and bowed their heads in front of him.
Sang Soo-ho, first of all, we would like to express our utmost gratitude.
Huh? What did I even do?
Thanks to Mr. Soo-ho, many people's lives have been saved. We would like to thank you on behalf of them.
Well, I didn't do anything that great.
You did something really great.
Oh, that scared me.
The man who seemed to have the highest rank turned his face towards Soo-ho. Then a soft smile formed on his lips.
Mr. Sang Soo-ho, you are very commendable. Such a young man risking his life to save people in today's harsh world.
Oh, no, sir.
Seeing the older man take out a handkerchief to wipe his tears made Soo-ho feel uncomfortable. The employee next to him patted him on the back as if he was used to it.
Team leader, you should stop crying and focus.
Ah, right. Haha. It's probably because I'm getting older, so I have a lot of tears. Mr. Sang Soo-ho, I am Han Jae-hyuk, team leader of the Hunter Association. The purpose of our visit is...
Team leader Han Jae-hyuk smiled as he held out the thick mana meter he brought.
This is to measure your mana level.
They had no doubts that Soo-ho had awakened. He was found passed out in the Korea University Art Museum, which had become a field-type dungeon. There were even corpse fragments that were confirmed to have been monsters lying around.
Even the reporters are constantly asking for information to write on their articles.
Han Jae-hyuk gave him a wink.
Ah, okay, sir.
Soo-ho gently puts his hand on the mana meter. The magic crystal embedded in the center emitted a subtle light. After waiting for a while, the measurement result came out.
Wait, this is...
Team leader Han Jae-hyuk scratched his chin as if he was seeing something unexpected. On the other hand, Soo-ho's expression did not change, as if he was not curious about the result at all. Obviously, it's because the status window in front of him is already showing his mana level.
Mana power level 46. You are an E-class hunter.
The other men in suits felt disappointed, but did not show it on their faces. They expected a hunter who was able to do all those things to have fairly high results. But he was only in the E-class. Team leader Han Jae-hyuk had different thoughts.
The value of a hunter is not based on class. Even though one is an E-class, if they risk their life to save people, there's nothing even greater than that.
The old man smiled warmly and patted Soo-ho on the shoulder with his hand.
Mr. Soo-ho, we're looking forward to your good performance in the future.
Yes, sir.
Thud. The association members bid Soo-ho goodbye and left the hospital room. Baru then peeped out from Soo-ho's shadow after waiting.
All right, let me give you a briefing.
Soo-ho, narrator, thud.
The door of the hospital room opened again. Baru went back into the sullen shadows.